after at the start having 1-0 last year, Curse Ferry came. You all know that. They looked as chaotic as that club has ever looked in living memory.
Yeah.
Now, 8 weeks later, you could argue they look in better shape to take teams on in Germany and in Europe than they have done for 5 or 6 years.
And it's just because of the transfer window, Danny. Because if you go back, as you say, to the start of the summer, it's not that they appoint Vincent Kompany, who, of course, got relegated with Burnley last season. Of course, he got relegated with Burnley. You know,
we'll get back to Vincent Kompany because that's the unknown factor.
Just to
isn't
frame
it
in that sentence is a little bit unfair and lacks nuance. I think, but it was the way that it's more the way that they came to hiring Kompany, because they start wanting Xabi Alonso. He says no, and in between them getting Kompany, there's a no also from Julian Nagelsmann, who they want to get back, and they're still paying at that point. There's a no from Ralf Rangnick. In fact, Louis van Gaal has even piped up earlier today and said they asked me before Kompany.
And on the way into the studio, I met Alan Kirbishy in the street. He said they asked me as well.
Well, that's the sort of thing. Normally, when you say ex-player or ex-coach is 10th choice, you're being figurative.
Yeah, you're exaggerating for effect.
But you're not exaggerating for effect here with Kompany. And we understand he speaks German. He's good with working with young players and they want to get younger. All that sort of stuff. But however, he's going into one of the biggest jobs in world football. And he is still, we don't really know what he is as a coach quite yet, do we?
But what they are definitely doing, having made that decision, however difficult it was to arrive at, how circuitous the route that eventually led to him as the appointment, they are really backing him now.
They are. They're
backing themselves, whatever you want to.
They're backing him, or they're putting him in a position where he cannot not win the league. Yeah. And he has to have a really good crack at the Champions League.
Manager that is in that position.
That is true. But I think with the purchase of Palhinha, obviously a player that is sort of Kompany independent, because he's a player that they've been looking at for a very long time, as we know. They nearly signed him last summer. Michael Elise as well, who covers an area of need, and again, midfield for them is a great area of need. Now, you look at them and the signings are so convincing that you think, okay, now this could be, maybe this isn't going to be the failure, because they have looked shambolic upstairs for a long time, since Hoeneß and Rummenigge went the first time, since even after they got rid of Salihamidzic and Oliver Kahn on the final day of not the season just gone, but the season before. That's when that came to light. And all throughout this coaching search, it's not that they got blown out by so many different coaches, it's that they got blown out by so many different types of coaches, so it looked like they didn't really know what they were doing. But then again, if you sign Elise, if you sign Palhinha, that makes a massive difference straight away.
Let me ask you then, I mean, the obvious pattern here is a club that has prided itself on producing Champions League challenging teams without spending Premier League money is suddenly, Andy, buying from Kane, Palhinha, obviously Michael Elise, paying very large fees to Premier League clubs. What's happening here? And I think you want to say that this has actually been replicated in a tiny way across the other leagues as well. Yeah,
I mean, we're seeing big European teams and even actually slightly below elite European teams. We'll come back to Atletico Madrid and Conor Gallagher a bit later, I suspect, going and buying players from Premier League teams. This never would have happened 6 months ago, let alone a year ago, because they couldn't have afforded it. The prices are lowering. The prices are lowering is a big part of it, because you look at the sort of money that these players are going for, and it's a lot less. Now, I'm thinking particularly with teams who are trying to clear the decks for PSR purposes, and you're looking at Chelsea, for example. They're asking for lower fees. Romelu Lukaku will go for below his the clause that they set for him with Roma last year. Conor Gallagher will go for probably just over half what they were asking, say, Spurs for him last summer. Yeah. You know, there is a definite climb down here. But I think it's really interesting.
Just looking at the club, I happen to follow more closely Spurs. You know, the fees they're getting for Højbjerg and Emerson Royal from teams on the continent are probably 25 to 33% less than they would have asked or expected to get in Premier League.
Exactly, Danny. I mean, we have to say there is a wage commitment here. And this brings us back onto Bayern, because when we're talking about a wage commitment, this is exactly what they've done for a very long time. So a little bit like a junior Manchester City, certainly in terms of the numbers. What they've done is gone out and buy players, not for 150 or 200 million, but with absolutely huge wages. I mean, if you look at Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, he's just got to the end of a contract which paid him over 10 million a year. I mean, that is a lot of money, and you replicate that throughout the squad.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money. And so they brought over guys not just on big fees, but guys who will be earning a lot of money as well. Now, I guess Harry Kane, and you'll back me up on this, I know, was really the turning point.
It is.
Because they spend 100 million on, and I know you can say he's the England captain, he's one of the best centre forwards in the world.
On a player with 1 year left on his contract, and that has set the benchmark now. And so you're getting situations where clubs have got players in the last year of their contract. People come in for them, used to getting them as bargains, and clubs are saying, well, no, he's worth 30 or 40 million pounds to us.
It's the Eden Hazard deal all over again, isn't it?
Kane has shifted the transfer market.
Yeah, he has.
And oddly enough, one of the teams that will suffer from that is Bayern Munich, who've been so used to getting players in the last year of their contract for half nothing, they're now being told, well, hang on.
Yeah, and I think if something has really changed at Bayern, not just this year, but in, I think, the last couple of years. If you go back 5 or 6 years, the record signing in Bundesliga history and in Bayern's history is Corentin Tolisso for 43.5 million euros. And since then, they've bought Luke Hernandez, they've bought Matthijs de Ligt, they've bought Kane, they've bought Michael Olise this summer, they've bought Palhinha. And these are substantial fees. And really, that creates a situation where you can't fail. Also, in their case, it means that they've got to sell at some point, A, because of the fees, and B, because of the wage bill. Now, they've got a couple of problems, and Kompany, again, this is nothing to do with him, just like the amount of money spent on players is nothing to do with him. So you look at Hiroki Ito, the centre-back who they bought from Stuttgart, serious knee injury already, can't play. Xavi Simons, who they were going all in for, and they were prepared to pay up to 80, 90 million for, refused to come because he'd prefer to keep his options open by going back to Leipzig, having a bit of stability, just being loaned there for the year. That doesn't mean he won't go to Bayern in future, but it's a big guy who's blown him out. They still want to sign Desiree Doué from Rennes, who's really interesting to PSG as well.
It'd be another huge fee.
Yeah, for another big fee, he would be in excess of 60 million. So you're looking at a situation where until they shift, say, Goretzka, a De Ligt, a Mazraoui.
Well, I mean, Manchester United offered money, I'm told, last week for a combination of De Ligt and Mazraoui, but it wasn't enough.
But the problem is, as the window goes onwards,
that may look more and more delicious to Bayern Munich.
Yeah, and I'm sure United know that the longer they leave it, they're just going to go, well, what are you going to do? You can't eat those wages for another 6 months, a year. You're going to have to get rid of some of these guys.
Yeah, I guess they seem very well, incredibly well stocked for wide forwards. They're breaking away finally from the idea that Goretzka and Kimmich were going to be the greatest midfield combination since Barcelona in the mid in 2012, 2013. This situation at centre back, you already mentioned the injury to Ito. Is this why they keep on sniffing around, if that's not a horrible phrase to use, Jonathan Tah at Dortmund? They wanted Tah already. Obviously, champion with Leverkusen last season. Only a year left on his contract. But they're looking at that and going, well, we don't want to pay you the farm for him. So they've offered, say, 20 million euros for the moment. I believe that's their highest offer as it stands. And obviously, goes back to the Kane thing. Yeah. Like Leverkusen, the canny operators, they're going, are you kidding? We're the champions. And he won the championship with us. And he didn't lose a single league game last season.
This is Trans-Europe Express. Sunday nights from 9 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.